But what's unrealistic is simply what they cannot make real in their mind. It has nothing to do with the actual realism of the thing being achievable or not. So your faith needs to be greater than the naysayers.
You have wondered what you would be able to do if you were the ultimate version of you, right? You would then have an easy time creating what you want, and yes, effortlessly enjoying life too. Now, you may know this already, the influence you have over your reality is far beyond what you've been told. Soon, you realize that your outer world is merely a mirror of your inner world, and we're here to connect the dots for you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to God Mode.
All right, welcome back to God Mode, everyone. This episode's going to be a bit more intimate. Michael and I are here actually talking in person to you guys about a special book that changes lives. And many of you may have read it, but you probably read it in a more service level. Now you may say, William, how dare you saying that I only read it in the service level? Look, I also only read it in the service level, at a very service conscious level. Today, I want to dive into some unconscious principles within this wonderful book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And welcome back, Michael. It's good to see you, man. Welcome
too,
back.
Man. Thank you. Appreciate it. It was, for those of you who don't know, I was in Europe doing some exploring, getting some new pixels out there. One of the best things that you can do for your neurology, if you want it to grow, put it in different environments where different cultures, different belief systems, different values, they lie within the environment. So traveling is it's a beneficial and amazing experience. So good to be back though.
I agree. In fact, in this book, if we were to open the book's content page, you'll see that there are some, where's the content page in this one?
I think it's because it's such a nice book. There it is.
Yep. Chapter 2, it says desire. See, if you don't travel, sometimes it's not as easy to inspire these really, really strong desires. And in order for you to have that desire, you need to give your unconscious mind the exposure. You need to expose your unconscious mind to these new environments. So I think, Michael, what he's saying, we should all practice, because if you put yourself in a different environment and travel and pick up those pixels, you inspire greater desire, which is actually the first principle of Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah. How are we going to know what we want if we're always in the same environment? If we're always doing the same things repeated over and over again, whether it's the job that we're in, whether it's just the same home, and nothing against the environment that we're currently in, right? Because we should always be grateful and appreciative of the things that we do have. However, sometimes if you're wanting to do more in your life, you have to experience other things. And traveling for me has always been one of those ways that I push my motivation, I push my desire naturally by putting myself in different environments. William has talked about this on prior podcast episodes, in his trainings as well, how when he wanted to know about when he's going to buy his yacht, he went to Monaco, put on the exact shirt, told the story many times, and it's a good practice, right? If you want to know more of what you don't know yet, go off there and experience and get some new pixels for yourself.
So true. That's a very important thing to remember. See, Napoleon talked about having desire, and that's the first principle of Think and Grow Rich. See, think and grow rich. It's an active engagement of your thinking faculty, which as you think about what you want, as you think about all these things, the first step is to create desire. And here, listen carefully. If you find desire, if you feel desire for something, that's actually a sign that your unconscious mind's communicating to you saying, this is what I want. If you feel desire for something, your unconscious mind is essentially giving you a signal, a feedback saying, yeah, if you can get me that, I'll do what you want. So it's essentially like a negotiation with your unconscious. If you can get that desire, your unconscious mind saying, I will do what you want. So for those of you who are suppressing your own desires, instead of exploring, understanding, learning, and cultivating, leveraging your desires, you're missing out. because your unconscious mind is the single most important aspect of your mind to motivate. And if you can motivate your unconscious mind, you will have desire, endless desire, and you will have endless motivation to naturally achieve what you want. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And some people might be like, is it really that simple? It can be, right? Now, there's plenty of other factors that could go into it, but that is of the desire. It's one of the very first steps of knowing what you want. It's going out there and motivating yourself in that way. I actually had a conversation at the wedding that I was at in Avignon, France, about that. They were curious, like, why did you go to Scotland first? Why did you want to travel over there first? And I was like, well, actually, I was thinking about having a lake house on Loch Ness Lake and the Inverness, Isle of Skye. And the people around were like, whoa, never considered that before. And I was like, I actually hadn't considered either until 2 weeks prior going to Scotland. I was looking up all the beautiful things we're going to do, planning out the itinerary. And I was like, wow, like lake houses here seem kind of affordable compared to some lake houses I've seen back here in the US. I think I told you about one that I found, and it's a very big house. It had stables and horses. Don't need to go into all the details, but the point of this was that I wouldn't have known that until I did some research and then actually visited the location myself to know that now this is a consideration, a true consideration in my mind, that I may want to buy a lake house on Loch Ness Lake in Inverness in Scotland. What does that do when I get back here now? I have a whole new set of motivations, whole new set of energy level, right? That guides me through our work that we do and my everyday lives with my health, my romantic relationships, my personal. So all these things are connected. That's where desire comes for every day to get up and continue to do the things we love to do.
So true. And consider this. Principle number 2 in this book is faith, right? The second principle of success in Think and Grow Rich is faith. Now, I think that Napoleon was spot on this, because if you properly cultivate desire and really understand how to motivate your unconscious mind, your unconscious mind will see whatever it is that you desire or that it desires as something worth putting faith into. And what faith is essentially is that it believes whatever your input is worth the output. So instead of feeling like, oh man, what I am inputting is not worth the output, it's feeling and thinking, oh yeah, this input measures appropriately to what the output is. And now it feels like it's worth the investment. And that faith is a power. It's a powerful thing that allows you to take action without fear. It causes you, because you have so much desire, it causes you so much natural motivation. It doesn't feel forced. Your mind feels naturally confident because it can see pictures of, look, if you have pixels, like Michael's saying, right? He traveled to get the pixels. Before that, he even did planning. He researched it. All of those pixels that you gather in your mind to create this congruent picture not only inspires desire, but now it gives you power to act, which is what it says in the second principle of faith.
Yeah, faith is such a beautiful thing to harness, such a beautiful energy to harness and have. I think Cody Sperber, and one of our recent episodes, and if you guys hadn't got a chance to listen or view one of our recent episodes, William did an amazing interview with Cody Sperber, fantastic human being, really successful entrepreneur and real estate investor. He stated that one of his main breakthroughs that he had when William asked him what was one of the ones was faith, having the faith in himself to continue on, even though the results hadn't come to him yet. And, I can appreciate if you're out there right now, if you're one of the listeners and you're like, well, things just aren't working out in the ways that I'd hope. Maybe some things are not lining up. The cards aren't falling in your favor. I've been there before. We've been there before. Continue to have faith in yourself. And what is faith, right? There's different interpretations of it. Really, it's the belief that you are worth it, that you love yourself enough, and that you continue to strive on even in the face of adversity. And why would Napoleon Hill write such an amazing book? And if you don't know the backstory about this, was it Andrew Carnegie that was the gentleman who actually in a way paid for this study, a 25-year study for Napoleon Hill to go off and research successful people. He found that principle of faith in all these successful people that he then wrote about. That's how massively powerful it is for us as human beings.
Yeah, this whole principle of faith allows you to act irregardless of what other people may say. And if you're an entrepreneur, investor, or any level of high achiever, you've probably been told or been, suggested negative outcomes by your peers, the people around you, even your family and loved ones. Sometimes they'll say, oh, that's not going to happen for you, or that's going to be tough, or that's hard. Don't you think you should dial back a little bit? That's a lot of expectation, or that's a big goal you have. That's unrealistic. People say all kinds of stuff. But what's unrealistic is simply what they cannot make real in their mind. It has nothing to do with the actual realism of the thing being achievable or not. So your faith needs to be greater than the naysayers, which is pretty easy. And that faith will come from your desire. Now, next, the third principle is auto-suggestion. Now, many of you who know Upgrade or have been listening to Upgrade, we're a big proponent on having positive, productive, resourceful suggestions towards self and others. So instead of accepting anything that may or may not be, well, especially the ones that are not helpful, but also considering everything you say to yourself. Now, Michael, would you tell us what you think about, what do people say to themselves oftentimes that's actually the root of self-sabotaging behavior?
When they don't understand language and how the power of the mind interprets language. So what I mean by that is something that I used to say is, I don't give up, right? Right? Now, what did I just say there? I don't give up. If you're a lifetime or a long listener, of our podcast, you probably have heard us say before.
They're going to be lifetime listeners.
Yes, of course. One episode, they're hooked, which we hope you are. Negation. Negation is such an interesting word that actually our minds doesn't interpret, the unconscious mind specifically. So as soon as we say a word like don't, whatever comes after it, we actually go and focus on that instead. This is why they say in aviation school, when they train pilots, they never say, don't look over there. They always say incoming object, focus on this, coordinates over this way. So if I tell myself, I don't give up, my unconscious mind naturally is looking for ways to give up. So auto-suggestions, they're powerful, but if you're using language and not the right way, meaning if the unconscious mind is just looking at it and not taking it to the right commands that you actually want, then you're still not getting what you want. So this is why Upgrade exists, to train people to increase their skill level, because too many people out there are working harder, increasing their effort, rather than simply increasing their mental faculties of their skill level. So auto-suggestion, while it's super powerful and while Napoleon Hill has it, the third principle, you don't know what you don't know about language, you may be spinning circles.
Yeah, it's so true, because I've heard so many people say this, I'm not a failure. I'm not bad at this, right? You ask people even, how is your day? They say, oh, it's not bad. I'm automatically going to think, what kind of bad stuff happened, right? So to me, one of the biggest, most important things that was taught that needs to be incorporated with Napoleon Hill's principle of autosuggestion. Autosuggestion meaning suggestion to the self. You need to make sure that you're communicating what is wanted to your unconscious mind that gives you what you want. It needs to produce images, sound, and feelings that actually communicates to the unconscious mind the ideal outcome. So since you already have desire, right? If you follow principle 1, desire, principle 2, which is faith, principle 3 is the language and the suggestions and continual focus on what you want and suggesting that to yourself. So instead of saying, I'm not a failure, I'm not bad, I'm not going to fail at this, I'm not going to miss it, I'm not going to be late, and I'm not going to screw it up. Instead, your thoughts, your picture, sound, feeling, and even smell and taste, and your words will be aligned with something like this. I'm successful. I'm good at this. And naturally, people want to pay me. And naturally, I attract and draw in the best of the best people who have great ecological and ethical intentions and behaviors. And I find myself spending more and more time and energy and getting that reciprocated with people of the highest caliber who want to help me win. And we all win together, and that's just natural. If you begin to think in that way and have pictures and sound and feeling and smell and taste, you find yourself immersing your mind in a world of abundance and resourcefulness. And when that happens, guess what? Your external world is simply a projection of your internal. So if you can do that, it causes your unconscious mind to change big time.
Yeah, I remember the very first time that you started in one of your trains about 4 years ago. I was taking with you, and you awoke my mind really to this principle of what are the words you were saying to yourself. And I had always been a big affirmation guy, not realizing I was using them incorrectly to a degree. And you said, a suggestion similar to what you just said. And the very first time, this feeling rushed over me because my unconscious mind was like, that's it. That's what you want. You need to say it like that. And I'm smiling right now. I kind of got goosebumps right now because I remember that feeling of the training of being corrected in a beautiful way, right? And in a way that wasn't like, hey, this is wrong. It was like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And we're all doing the best with the resources we have available to us. This is, again, why Upgrade exists. Because if we don't know, we don't know, all good. But I remember that feeling. The reason I bring it up is because there's a different imagery in my mind now when I hear that suggestion. And when I'm doing that kind of auto-suggestion to myself, rather than just like, well, I'm not going to give up, or I'm not a failure, or whatever it is, those are they're weaker attractor suggestions. Now, why not give yourself a higher, much higher, stronger attraction that you just motivate your unconscious mind with all that desire? It's very powerful to think back to that moment where we are now. So for the listeners, I just wanted to share that story with them so they begin to, this is your first time hearing it.
Yeah, and what Michael and I are talking about here is the fourth step, actually, the specialized knowledge. In this book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon mentioned specialized knowledge. That's actually what we teach at Upgrade. The specialized knowledge allows you to break through the walls of limitation, because you can have all the desire, have all the faith, and give yourself the best of suggestions. But if you don't know how to work your mind and understand the principles that govern the interaction between your conscious, unconscious, and the physical world and the worlds beyond, if you don't understand how that works and how they align, and upon alignment, it reduces physical effort. If you don't know that and how to activate this alignment, it actually will just cost more money. And I was actually reading today, I saw a post by Alex Hermosi, actually. It was on his Instagram. And he said, for someone who makes $50,000 a year, how much does it cost to not learn what it takes, or that special knowledge, right? The specialized knowledge to be able to make $1 million a year. So for someone who's making 50 grand, how much would it cost them to not know how to make what someone who makes $1 million knows? Well, the answer was $950,000. It cost them $950,000 to not know what it takes to make $1 million a year. And that presupposes all of us have the capabilities, if given that we're able to learn and have the knowledge, the special knowledge. And that's why we exist as Upgrade. It's that specialized knowledge that bridges the gap. Now, look, I know that we don't make any promises of, hey, we're going to get you to $1 million plus or $1 million additional. And many of you who are listening are making millions already. And you're like, how do I get to $1 billion? Well, how much would it cost for a millionaire to not know what it takes to become a billionaire? Hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So it's the same principle. Yeah, sure, we don't guarantee it. there's a reason many successful individuals flood to us. And we've been noticing more and more multimillionaires coming to us saying, hey, look, I thought I've achieved the pinnacle of my success, but the reason I didn't keep going wasn't because I have what I need and that I don't need anymore. It was simply because I don't have specialized knowledge to get me to the next level. And here's the thing. They all said something very similar to me. They said, I feel like if I were to get to the next level, it would take too much effort, energy, and time. And I don't have that to sacrifice. I already sacrificed too much time away from family. I want to now spend time with my family. And if it means I have to stay where I am and just stay plateaued or stay where whatever the level is that I'm comfortable and familiar with, so be it. That's the honest conversation. But the truth is, that's not the case. To stay where they are and to not grow, it costs them actually additional freedom of time because there's another level of success they can achieve without that sacrifice, and it takes specialized knowledge.
And for those who don't know who Alex Hormozi is, I would definitely encourage you to Google this guy. He's a gentleman who's highly successful. So what William was highlighting with Alex's post here reminds me of the quote from Richard Bandler. It's not in the things that we want to do but cannot do. It's in the things that we never considered doing. That's where we find our greatest limitations. William and I have both talked about and been open about how we never considered a mindset training, especially in the unconscious mind, as being the thing that would propel us to the next level. And I go back to the episode again with Cody Sperber. You had asked him, hey, what was something you wish you had done sooner or told your younger self to do sooner? And he's like, I wish I had worked on the subconscious mind quicker, getting rid of the past emotions. Like, you want to go further faster? Go back to the subconscious mind and look at the past feelings of what may be holding you back. And I'll give you an example that happened in my life just pretty recently. I was in Avion at the wedding, and there's starting to talk about politics. And I know there's the old rule that at wedding and alcohol, you shouldn't be talking about politics, but it got to that point, right? So, I like to observe mostly. William and most people who know me understand that I usually sit back and pretty quiet. I'm studying politics because I have aspirations to one day be in that field. So I've been studying and just observing for a while. So I decided to voice my opinion on some things. And two people who had different opinions actually turned to me and said, that was very eloquently and profoundly spoken. Are you in politics yourself? And I said, no, I'm not. This is what I do. And I told them I'm involved in upgrading some things about that. And I said, I just study it. And I realized there that they assumed because of the way I was speaking about it, that I had to have some kind of training in it, that I must be my profession, right? There's no way that if I wasn't in this field, I couldn't have spoken at that level about it. But really what I'd have done is just upgraded my unconscious mind. So now the mental faculties are able to learn faster whenever I choose to focus on something and desire to focus on it. By doing that, what does that help me do? Well, it helps me get rid of imposter syndrome sometimes. It helps me feel better about myself naturally. It helps me learn faster and eventually put myself around the people, opportunity, resources that I want. So Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill is talking about specialized knowledge. What Upgrade teaches is probably the most specialized knowledge there is out there.
Indeed, it's very true. And this platform, look, we encourage people to realize that this is not only an experience and a platform, it's a mission. And what we're giving people is that specialized knowledge to free themselves from the illusion of limitations. And I will say this, if you were to observe what Napoleon Hill said next, he talked about specialized knowledge, and then he talked about imagination. See, if you look at what imagination is, it's the creation in a different realm. You must be able to create it before it gets brought into the physical. You must be able to create it first in your mind. And one of the biggest problematic beliefs that people have, or a false belief that people have been sharing with each other, is that, oh, that's just in your head. That's just an imagination. That's just what you imagine in your head. That's not real. Well, let me tell you this. It won't become real unless you imagine it first. And one of the key things that, in fact, the post from Alex Hermosi earlier that I saw, when he mentioned how much would it cost to not learn what the millionaire knows if you only make $50,000. Well, it's $950,000. That's how much it cost you. And amongst that, whatever that you need to learn to become a millionaire, that key learning, especially if you're like a millionaire wanting to become a billionaire, we have observed this pattern. They become profoundly great at imagining what they want. They become profoundly great at imagining what they want and having and enjoying what they want and imagining the outcome of what they have and the process of what they have becoming the person that allows themselves to achieve that. And all of those things being imagined, that's actually one of the specialized knowledge. And Alex said something interesting at the end in the caption. He said, generational wealth is not passed down through assets, but through education. Because your kids and their kids won't be able to keep the wealth if their neurology is not capable of maintaining and growing the wealth. Therefore, the assets is useless. It's just a physical representation of something empty. But if your mind passes on, if you learn and you pass on the learnings, the specialized knowledge, then wealth will always remain in the family.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so many episodes, examples exactly of what you just said, of people who either get rich through maybe the lottery or maybe they're professional athletes, celebrities of some kind, but they haven't taken that knowledge and passed it down through generations versus maybe like the Rockefellers, for example, who are passing down knowledge and generational wealth. Imagination, oh man, we could talk about just this one thing for like episodes on episodes. I would say if you're brand new,
save it for the next episode.
We could.
We'll talk about imagination in this next episode. We'll see you next week.
Jump into upgrade focus, though.
Yeah, jump into upgrade focus.
Start your imagination.
That is literally the training for you.
Yeah.
Go on our link and the link on our Instagram and or upgrade.com, upgrd.com, and you'll see upgrade focus, the 21-day challenge. See you there.
See you.